No, you're good.
You're gonna miss us.
He did.
I don't think he is. He just smiled. You know, he didn't acknowledge it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and get started, y'all. Hopefully, we think this should be our last meeting, and I think this should be a fairly quick meeting because we're not going to grind through all the studies again. We've pretty much gotten the research. We studied it long enough. You know pretty much what we want to do, but we did want to get together one more time before Lorraine and I make a presentation to the commissioners, just to make sure there wasn't any piece that we either missed on or maybe we didn't emphasize enough. But if you take your packet here and you turn to page 3 and you go down to the bottom there of key recommendations, I don't think there are going to be any surprises here, but Lorraine and I will go through it with you one more time, and we will need a vote from the committee, not on just this, but on the entire report, which would be pretty much accumulation of all the studies that we've done, all the reports you've heard, and so forth. So
We don't want to go through the entire report,
no,
correct?
I hope not.
Just for the record, make sure everybody's on the same page.
Although if there is something within the body of that they wanted to get clarification on, sure.
And
Does that
the
sound okay to everybody?
And the liaisons will not vote, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That's the way I understand it.
Unless we're in Chicago and we need an extra vote.
Well,
I'm glad we're not in Chicago.
All right.
So we'll start with the first one there under key recommendations, where we are recommending, the committee is recommending 4 new community health centers over the next 5 to 10 years. Any questions or thoughts about that before we move to the next one? Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I'll try to keep.
No.
I mean, this has more to do with JPS. I mean, in my world, we don't use timeframes of 5 to 10 years. We just have more specific goals. I mean, should we be more specific there? I mean, are we just going to give them that much? Is that okay to do it that way? Because in my world, when you tell somebody 5 to 10, you're giving them 10. So is that at a good enough pace? Is that quick enough or not?
Well, I mean, it's a good question. I think that, and I'm just going to speak for myself here, I think there's some realization that it's going to be really hard for JPS to get all of these things done, even though we think that it is a top priority, every one of them. And if you remember, we said they're all a priority, and they all need to go. So even if we got the funding tomorrow and the bond got passed, I mean, this is going to be a big deal for the JPS leadership to get all this stuff together. So that's where I was coming from. I don't know where everybody else is coming from, though.
And I echo that, but I think these are deliberative bodies, our Board of Management and the commissioners, and it does take time to work through. And then things change. That's one of the reasons I think we've had our Blue Ribbon Committee, because we've had studies, but then things change a little bit and we have to make adaptations. And so I think the 5 to 10 kind of makes sense, but I think we're all with you. I mean,
Yeah, I just don't set goals for any of my businesses with that kind of latitude, right? I mean, it's this much by this time, that's what we're going to do.
Because things change so radically.
Yeah, I understand. If I was JPS, I would be setting themselves more specific goals. I guess that's how I would say it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but that, I'm fine. Leave the language the way it is.
I
It's
think
just a comment.
when Lorraine and I do our report, certainly the time frame's going to come up. And I actually really agree with you, Mark, on that. It's a long way out. But I also recognize the reality of if we were able to really get all of these things funded, wow, going to have to be a lot of Mary Ann's and Scotts around here.
well, we could say, maybe during our testimony, we said, got to do this in 2 years. And then
We'll encourage them.
and if you look on page 50 of the report, there's a timeline, and 5 to 10 is pushed down to 7 years. And so it's a pretty ambitious plan, depending on what we do to get that accomplished. So.
Yeah.
Well, I don't vote on this, but maybe I'll speak on behalf of the board to say
absolutely.
we recognize these needs. And it's important, on behalf of the board, I'll step out on that limb and say, on behalf of the board, it's important that everybody here knows our hospital board knows we need these community centers. Y'all's input that it's like an agreement, that yes, we agree, you do need them.
Yeah.
And the time frame is as soon as we can get to them, but we do have issues like funding and the rest of the items. So I agree, Mark, we're trying to plan this. If we could do it next week, we'd be starting,
Yeah.
but
Well, since we're leaving the financing to JPS, why wouldn't we just eliminate in the next 5 to 10 years and just say we recommend that? Back to Mark's point.
Well,
I would match it to 7 years like your base schedule, but, because we've got a schedule at that, that's what I would
Yeah.
recommend, but it doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
Really, it's not that big a deal.
Let Howard speak to this one.
Well, I just had, if I can back up
Yeah.
a little bit, on page 6, under the background, because I didn't review this, because I apologize, I missed a meeting, but, you know, if the public are reading this, it says, JPS, in the first paragraph, JPS serves the community with its main campus and 40 unique locations, but then when you get down to the next bullet, it's 14 plus 20 is 34, and I don't see the 40.
I saw that.
And it says it again in prior to one of our recommendations, so maybe I'm missing it, but if somebody's reading this, where are the other 6?
Well, there's 14 community health centers. There's 20 school-based clinics. There's a main hospital.
But it says exclusive of the main hospital, main campus. In the sentence ahead, it says JPS serves from its main campus and 40. So I'm trying, somebody else is reading this in detailed fashion, they may go, it doesn't add up to 40. I'm sorry.
I wonder, would
That's
that
a good point.
include some of the services, like we have the cancer clinic, which is not on the main campus, but it's close. And we've got a few others like that, like some physical. Yeah.
But it's not enumerated.
But we probably ought to detail that in here, just because that is
Or
confusing.
reduce it, because it's mentioned
Yeah.
twice in this report.
Yeah.
And I'm going, and some of the constituents in my district, they're going to just,
Pick it.
what's going
Right.
on here?
No, that's
So-
a great point.
Let us, if you all
Yeah.
approve, and we're hoping you'll approve this final document, we'll go on the stipulation that we go back and clarify that particular issue.
That would be fine.
And,
Me,
and Dee, if you or the group want us to take the 5 to 10 out, we can
I'm just
smooth
echoing
that
Mark's
line.
comment. I think it probably is silly for us to make specific timelines since we don't
Yeah,
control the funding of it.
yeah, yeah.
Good, we can
Good
do
point.
that.
well, and one of the unique locations that JPS provides services in our county is under bridges and overpasses, okay? So, I mean, we are all over. I mean, I could argue with it that the number is as many as I want it to be, because we literally, I'm not talking out of turn, let the JPS people speak up. We literally have, part of our outreach is
To the
to the
homeless.
homeless
Yeah.
people under bridges and overpasses.
Yeah.
Okay?
But to me, that's a salient point
Yeah,
to elucidate in here, is that included are these.
right.
Yeah, I mean, because that's, to me, is really reaching out to the underserved.
Yes.
That's what the mission is.
Okay.
But I agree with
Well, that's a
page
good
50.
point.
Page 50, the whole timeline is here on projected timeline, but that's up to the board of managers
Yeah.
and the commission's board, so.
So we're gonna delete the 5 to 10 years, and we're gonna get clarification of the specific actual locations on page 6.
Is that general consensus? We don't need to vote on that. Good.
All right, Lorraine, you wanna
Okay.
handle the next one?
Our second key recommendation, the committee recommends a new ambulatory surgery center is needed on campus to alleviate capacity constraints and move lower acutely
Lower Q.
surgical cases to more appropriate, lower-cost setting. In addition, the committee recommends the JPS Center for Cancer Care would be more ideally located in a patient-friendly, dedicated new facility on or near campus. It's on page 36, the actual language about it. Any concerns, any questions? Go, Mark.
I'm sorry.
No.
I don't remember even talking about the cancer care center. Was I asleep during that?
It was
Did
one
we
of the-
discuss
We
that?
did,
It was
we
one of the
did.
special
I don't know that it was in great detail.
Okay, we discussed it.
But it
Okay,
did-
that was my question. I just don't recall that
We didn't
discussion.
discuss it.
No,
Okay, got it. Never mind.
But any concern about that? Howard?
I can say as a physician, sometimes it's better to separate general public and health concerns from cancer concerns. And we did that in our clinic certainly, and Dr. Flynn can address it too. But, you know, there's a whole different mentality of the patients coming into those centers, so it makes sense to try to separate them.
I didn't really have an opinion on one way or another. I just don't remember talking about it because it says we're doing this, but I didn't remember the discussion.
it was a pretty quick discussion, and we really didn't delve into it real deeply. And the current configuration is a one-story, older clinic that, it does okay, but it would,
It's about a block north of the main campus.
Yeah.
it would just, it really needs expanding and probably just redoing. That looks like a fairly old building to me, so I don't know how much renovating you could do to it, but it's getting by, you know.
So I just had a procedural question. When I read bullets like this, sometimes there's a purpose to the hierarchy. I have the sense that's not the case here, but some of our readers may feel that we're making a statement ranked from 1 through 6. I notice in bullet 3, you use the modifier overwhelmingly. So you're making a very strong statement about that particular, and I'm just asking the question, is this intentional to have them in order? They're not alphabetical, they're not by rank order, but others are going to read this and they may well believe our number 1 bullet was the number 1 in our voting list.
You know, that's a really good point,
But we
Stuart.
did have a little discussion about it.
We
that
did.
We didn't want to rank them necessarily.
Right.
That's fine.
But
I'm
we
just
may
asking.
want to
Want to-
delineate
Yeah.
what Stuart
Right.
just said. Maybe we need to say something under key recommendations before we start listing them.
Not right.
The committee felt like all of these were
Important.
of top
Yeah.
priority. These are not listed in
It is in there.
ranking of importance.
That statement is in there. It says, and in no specific order.
Yes, sir.
The key findings and recommendations are outlined in
Where is
further
it, Andy?
detail.
Where do you see that?
I think page 2,
It's
right,
we
right
may
above the label that says key
Right above
findings,
Key findings.
Keep
right here. And in no specific
I
order.
wonder if we shouldn't take that sentence, though, and either repeat it or add it under key recommendations.
or bold it or something.
Yeah,
so that
just a-
people-
Excuse me.
Key findings and recommendations are outlined in further detail and in no specific order in the final section of this report. Below are highlights.
Okay, so let us do this. Let us go ahead and bold and capitalize that entire sentence.
Okay. All right.
Would that help?
It would also help to do what Stuart suggested, is to eliminate these modifiers, adverbs, whatever, overwhelmingly suggests that has a greater weight than the other 6
Yeah,
findings.
yeah. So we'll scratch that one out?
Eliminate
Yeah.
any words like that.
Okay. That's a good point.
Okay.
I think what the point that we're trying to make is that the committee was pretty
Ambivalent on
dang,
order,
yeah.
it's just everything was.
But we were pretty dang near unanimous on all of this, you know, so it's, I think that was the.
Actually, we
purpose.
were unanimous on
Yeah.
all of these.
Okay. Good suggestion. Glad we met. So the next one, obviously, is about the new main hospital and the behavioral health facility. We've kind of gone through the numbers many, many times, but the detail on that is back there on 39 and 41. Anybody have anything that they want to add to that particular bullet?
We're good with that one?
If not, keep
Okay,
going.
the fourth
Okay, Lorraine, you got the next one.
We recommend JPS take leadership in a countywide planning effort to build and retain a future healthcare workforce to address the growing needs as well as build particular service lines at JPS where we anticipate growing dramatic increases in demand such as geriatrics. Any concern with that? We had robust discussion about the healthcare workforce and what needed to be done and particular service lines. Mark? No, I'm
TK's gonna put me on the hall.
I'm
have to
not
leave.
picking on you, but
Yeah.
you helped to spur discussion.
I don't have any comments on that.
Roy, since you're representing the,
I think I've hit my word limit. I have nothing else to offer.
okay,
I just have to comment, the growing dramatic increases in that growing doesn't mean anything to me there. Is that word need to come out?
Let's see, we're growing.
where we anticipate growing dramatic increases.
Or,
It's almost duplicate
Yeah, I don't-
wording. You
I
could
don't-
probably cross out growing.
there's too many words there. I
Yeah,
think one-
anticipate dramatic increases. Do you think that would suffice?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Everybody okay with that? Just eliminate growing? All right.
Okay. All right.
Next one is committee recommends a strong integrated healthcare delivery system for low-income, uninsured, and underinsured patients to reduce preventable, duplicative, and costly healthcare utilization and to improve the quality of life.
Page 45. Going once, going twice.
I just had to say something.
Sold on Mark.
I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I mentioned this to Marianne a minute
Okay.
ago. That we didn't, it's too late to talk about this, but there's a guy that won a Nobel Prize last week named Richard Thaler. He's a behavioral scientist. His book called Nudge has a lot of really good recommendations on how you figure out how to get people to make the right choices and decisions, which very much applies to this item. We didn't get to talk about it in any of our meetings. It didn't get brought up. I wish it reminded me of him and his work, but I did want to make say that and ask JPS to consider setting up what you would call a nudge team for this item to allow them to be thinking about how to make things easier to get people to, come back to visits, get their checkups, get their follow-up, and there's a whole branch of behavioral science now that's really focused on that. And so I just wanted to ask JPS, and maybe Dr. Lowry can help me with that, with whoever's on the board, else is on the board, to see if you can get them to do that within the organization
Yeah.
to help with this item.
You know what? May I give a personal testimony? I've been a patient of JPS since we've been having our committee. I had a little tumor on my back, and I had it removed a couple of weeks ago. You talking about nudging? They call you before for the surgery prep. They call you twice. And then the day of, they call you twice. And I was on the way for my pre-surgery checkup. They called me in the car on my cell phone. And then the day after, they called to check on me. Today, and it's been 2 weeks, they called to check on me. So they nudge you.
Good.
I mean, it gets to the point of almost a little much, too much, but you appreciate it in the long run. JPS is, I've been amazed at how the meticulous detail that they pay attention to to a patient. And I was just like,
Good.
ordinarily Jolene going in to get my little thing done, and it was great. But they do nudge you.
That's awesome, and that sounds like they're doing some of the things I'm saying. I would just
Yes.
encourage them to make that a part of their organization by setting up a team and looking for all possible ways to do that. Because in preventative care, those are scheduled procedures, but in preventative care, we're getting people to show up for those is a little different ballgame.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things, we just don't make the best judgments for ourselves. And what you do is create ways to nudge people to do that, right? And so I would just encourage them to, in this item, to study that work
Great.
by Richard Thaler, who's now a Nobel Prize winner, and you'll come up with some great ideas for how.
Do you want to say, Mark, organize a nudge team?
I would love to tell them in this report, but we didn't get to talk about it, because that's what I'd like, I just want to throw that idea out to JPS.
I think it's a great idea, and maybe,
In
you
response
know,
to your comments, I've been known to nudge people over there at the board. And I promise you, I will nudge for this, because it's an excellent idea. And there's so many things in process that are like that, but we will bring it as a special focus, I promise.
Great.
Thanks, Mark.
We can rely on
You got
you,
one?
Roy.
Yeah, and he is a nudger, by the
Yeah.
way. I've worked with this guy long enough, I know, and he never forgets either.
I did that from, you're the next one?
Oh, you want to, oh, I thought that was mine. Okay, I'll do the last one here. To approach the county's health system,
Yeah, committee recommends.
didn't I do that one? I thought I did that one.
A strong and great idea.
Well,
Yes.
the last bullet,
Yeah, cheers. You got the last one.
Okay. To approach the county's health system in a holistic manner and to decrease the overall cost of the system, the committee recommends a series of cross-sector, countywide strategies focused on disease prevention and the social determinants of health. And that's on page 45. We had a long talk about this. Lot of give and take on, remember we said we didn't want JPS to work in silos, that it needed to be more of a countywide kind of operation. We have, and our consultants work with, this has been a big topic of discussion. Anybody else have any concerns with it?
Well, when I read the words county health system, that is not CAP, my perception is the health system of the entire county, which includes other healthcare organizations, right?
Yeah.
So we are not referring to JPS's healthcare system. We are talking about
The entire
the entire county. I think, make sure that the audience understands that somehow.
and Commissioner, this bullet here is specifically addresses some of the conversations that we've had
Right,
as far as a new countywide approach to health and wellness.
right.
So that's what this.
So this one shouldn't be tasked just to JPS,
No.
right? It takes everybody working together to really deliver this strategic recommendation.
And when you go to page 45, you'll see that it talks about the public health department. As it relates to that, it talks about other health systems.
Right.
So,
So this is actually just slightly misleading then, when it says the county's health system, because what we just defined is not a health system. Those are the health players. I'm not sure how we want to reword this, but if you were, I just don't think we're leading them the right direction. It's not like THR and HCA and all these guys are working together as a system. They're all doing their own thing. But I thought we were trying to address that we may be working with one or all of those people for some degree of providing some service. The possibility is there. Am I reading that wrong? So is there a better way to say that? To approach the counties, to approach the provider systems, the provider
Howard.
organizations?
You know,
the-
Howard?
maybe one thing, you know, in this, on page 45, just to back up a tad under integrated delivery system, and thinking of the medical schools and the poor and nonprofit that we're trying to integrate, not only for future physician residency spots, et cetera, you know, the big, I think one of the big elephants in the room is the health information exchange and patient control of their information. And if you look at 10 or 20 years, wherever Joe Smith goes, he ought to have that information available, you know, whether
Yep.
he's on vacation or overseas or whatever. So it is a county-wide health system. It's not there right now. We don't have a health information exchange that's that efficient. But
Yeah.
I think that is trying to answer those questions, but I think that's a huge thing in the next 10 years.
Yeah,
so can I suggest some language in this?
sure.
This may be all wrong, but what happens if we say this? to approach the county's overall health in a holistic manner and to decrease the overall cost of the healthcare. The committee recommends a series of cross-sector countywide strategies focused on disease prevention and the sole determinants of health. Does that expand it a little bit more than just a health system? Talk about the overall health of the county? I mean, that's just, I don't know if that sounds, one good thing about my suggestions is that you can either throw them away or just simply disregard them.
We're all waiting for Mark to weigh in.
Already been through it.
Great.
I've already threatened Mark that if he said one more word, we're gonna put him on another committee.
That'll get my.
What do you think,
What do you think, Mark?
Mark, and then Dr. Flynn?
No, I actually.
These guys are the experts.
You won't believe me, but I was actually heading to getting that word out of there. I actually like it a lot, and it doesn't put ownership to anyone's imagination who we might be referring to.
There you go.
You're done? You're.
And Mark?
I was totally,
Mark?
I was gonna say something,
Okay.
but I like to let our lawyer chime in.
It does seem to me you could expand that paragraph on page 45 to GK to address some of that, as opposed to the summary on the first page.
Okay, sure.
The concept we talked about so much was the privates and participating, and that's not in that paragraph at all.
Okay. We'll do that.
What about the last paragraph there,
Yeah, if y'all want to just read.
Anybody have any concern about the last paragraph? We just want to make sure. On page 4, although many decisions related to the recommendation must still be made, particular needs are so great and the solutions so clear that the committee was able to come to unanimous agreement on the recommendations in the report. Do we like that? Does it kind of speak to what we have been doing these last few months? Do we? What do you think, Mark?
Nothing doing it.
Now all the pressure's on Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved it. I didn't have a single comment.
Stephen, you've been awfully quiet.
Hey,
Is that by design?
No.
wait. Don't have any problems with the way that reads. I think it's pretty good.
Are we gonna get any sound? Is there no sound for this?
Okay, D. What do
Yeah,
you
I would never
Yeah,
write
yeah,
these
I'm
solutions are so clear, though. That just strikes me as a bit overstated, but
I know, stupid me.
we might want to soften that just a little bit.
Okay.
We had to
Solutions
do,
so
a- we
clear.
had to do a lot of
Stand?
study to come to these recommendations.
Yeah,
I
we
don't
did.
think they were just so clear that they just rose from the ground and we saw them.
I think they were trying to say evidence we saw was
Maybe-
needed to.
Maybe something along those lines. I don't want to wordsmith this, GK. I'll be quiet.
You need to let her.
Mark and GK, what do you want to put in there?
Well, I think we'll let us reword it a little bit, D, and,
Okay.
but I understand, I understand exactly what you're saying. We'll do
I think the bottom line of what we were trying to say on that sentence was that after we'd gone through all this, it was apparent unanimously that all these things were recommended. So maybe you could cut out "and the solution's so clear."
I think
And
the whole,
pretty much-
the whole
pretty
gist of
much
this
have
was
it.
that this was a unanimous decision by the board.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked before about this board. This is not necessarily a homogeneous board. This is a very diverse board. And to come to, a unanimous agreement is, in my opinion, is very substantial. So I think that's the message that we were trying to carry on this.
Yeah.
So we think so, having sat through this, but we've just got to make sure we relay that clearly to the public, so that reads this, so that they'll know that Randy,
And you're gonna give 500 speeches, did you say, to the community? Did I hear you say 500?
maybe 5. I'm gonna miss you, Randy. You guys just don't know.
Okay.
Any other comments on that paragraph?
I have a comment or a question on one of them. So the third bullet is the shortest of all of our bullets, and yet it blends too huge. And in fact, I think truly probably our number one first of unanimous decisions, which was the behavioral health. And I'm just asking, I would hate for that little short bullet to get lost of the significance of those two, and I would only ask,
I thought
should
about
that
that
have
too,
its own
Stuart. I think
independent bullet?
that would be my take, is I think it ought to have its own individual bullet too, yeah. Because it does almost kind of like it's kind of like oh yeah, and don't forget the behavioral. No, it's not just a, oh, don't forget, it's a big deal. So I think it's a really good observation. I'd pull it out and make it a different bullet point.
Make it stand alone?
Yeah.
Because we did have quite a big
Yeah.
discussion about the behavior. Yeah. We need to.
Thank you, appreciate you pointing that out.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know why, this side of the room has really been, there's lots of stuff. I don't know, are you guys just kind of easy going today? Are you calm? Are you just put so much faith in this side of the table
Well,
here?
D, I think is.
D is helping us over here.
I'm gonna move over there.
You are kind of by yourself here, D.
The gentleman next to me and I don't have a vote. We're here
But you
almost-
always have the opportunity to give us input.
We're
Yeah.
cool.
Dr. Simmons
They're
is
feeding-
stirring,
they're feeding it
so
to
that
me.
means,
Dr. Trevino,
yep.
I don't know if I have anything to add to what's been added so far.
Of the entire thing, anybody have any concerns about any of the recommendations beyond separating out behavioral? Behavioral was a big deal for the Star Telegram. The behavioral was a big deal for us, okay?
And so, after, at the beginning on page 5, the committee has looked at these several times and have reviewed them and made comments and corrections on it. So really, the first 4 pages was something new because what we did, we tried to make sure that at the very front, everyone knew what the key findings were, what the key recommendations were, so that they didn't have to search the document to find that. That was some of the big changes that we saw in this
Yeah.
compared to what we've seen in the past.
So we're ready to vote? So I guess the motion, Madam Co-Chair, would be that we accept the entire report and findings and recommendations of this committee.
Right. And I second that motion.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign.
Did
Okay.
everybody vote? No abstentions?
Any abstentions? No. Okay. GK, next step is we have to, meaning I guess Lorraine and I have to make a presentation to the commissioners in the next few weeks. That is an open meeting, but it's,
And what we're going to do, we're going to hold a joint session with the Commissioners Court and the Board of Managers. And at that session, that's where the report will be given.
okay.
So now that the Blue Ribbon Committee has done their final vote on this, we're going to go ahead and make these corrections that we saw today.
Right.
And then speak with both the court and the board, find when the most opportune time is going to be there. We would ask that I don't know if that's going to be a Tuesday morning, but it's going to be either Tuesday or Wednesday, possibility of some week. We're going to ask that if you would like to come, we cordially invite you to come, because you all have done a tremendous amount of heavy lifting on this thing. And while the 2 co-chairs are going to make the presentation, I know the court, we've been keeping the court informed, and I know the board's been informed also that this has been a full committee event and just all the good work that you guys have put into this. So we will get back with you all to check when that, and to tell you all when that is. We've got some work to do with our court and with our board of managers, so we can get them all there together. And then we're going to make this presentation, and actually the two co-chairs will make this presentation.
Mark, I know you're gonna come.
You know,
Can't
I'll ask some questions.
That's
No, I want to come support you guys. I'm gonna be cheering for
When
you.
they question us, we're just deferring to Mark. Talk to this guy.
Oh, my goodness. Poor guy. Thank y'all for doing that. I mean, that's gonna be good. Thank y'all for doing that.
And thank you guys. I have to tell you, when I took this, I don't know how you felt, Lorraine, when you said yes, but when I said yes, I thought, man, what am I getting myself into? Because I thought this was going to be this horrendous dogfight, and it really didn't end up being that way at all. It ended up being just, from my perspective, just exactly the way you'd want a blue ribbon committee to participate. And I feel great about the product that came out, and I became a big fan of, not that I wasn't a big fan, but I became a bigger fan of John Peter Smith to see the restrictions that you guys work under, given what a great job you all do under some pretty tough circumstances. And even though I don't live in Fort Worth, I am in Tarrant County, and I pay my taxes to JPS too, and you know, I know the great stuff you all do for everybody in Tarrant County. So our next big challenge, in my opinion, is going to be that we've got to sell it. I mean, this committee knows what we need to do, but the next big thing is going to be how do you get the folks out in the hinterlands there, so to speak, who realize how valuable John Peter Smith is, and why they need to make a commitment to whatever I'm sure there's going to be some sort of bond package coming up. I mean, I don't have any inside information, but I mean, that would only seem logical that at some point that's going to be thrown out there to the public to vote on. I don't know if it's this year, next year, whatever, but this is a really big ticket that we've thrown at the commissioners, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all works out. I mean, they've got budgets too, and they've got to make their priorities. But I just appreciate you guys, appreciate the professionalism, appreciate my co-chair, and all the folks from John Peter Smith and the county, that were so supportive in getting us the product we needed, the information we needed, and some of our citizens here that have shown up for every single meeting.
Yeah. And I too, I echo Randy's remark. This has been remarkable because I too accepted this with lots of hesitancy because I was personally busy, and one, I didn't know hardly anybody on the committee except Dee and Commissioner Brooks. But after the first day, I felt really comfortable because one of the things I surmised from everybody sitting around the table, that we were all concerned about healthcare and trying to look at it in a way to benefit all of us as county residents and taxpayers. So this has been a good thing. Now, I tell you, we talked about a lot about our personal commitment as committee members of getting the story out. So I'm going to take our recommendations and I'm going to pull it out of this, the executive summary and all of that, and use it. I'm going to go to our local neighborhood groups and some of the other kind of things that I'm associated with, and I hope that each of you would too. Rotary Club or the lawyers or the doctors groups, so that people understand, because if we don't tell the word, nobody will get the word. And then we don't want people to misinterpret. I think Dee and Mark have been very good at pointing out to us that it's not our charge to spend the money. We're making recommendations of what we see is in the best interest in the next few years for the county's health. And so this is it. These are our recommendations. How that gets sorted out is left to the Commissioners Court and the Board of Managers. And so we're We've given you something, as my grandmother would say, to chew on.
To chew on.
Yeah, so, and not to wash our hands. But I appreciate you, and I appreciate the way you've engaged us in discussion.
If I could, just one comment. You know, first of all, you all have done a great job. And I want to thank some people that on my staff and on JPS's staff. Mary Ann, you, Scott, Kelly, you guys have done a really good job, and how much we really appreciate it. There's been a lot of heavy lifting on my staff, and I wanted to recognize 3 people. Lonnie, the lady sitting back there, Candace, lady whose lipstick and dress match. We've already had that conversation. And Megan. These are young professionals in my office that we at the county are very, very fortunate to have. And I just want to let you 3 know how much I appreciate you all.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely.
Well, I just want to thank the 2 chairs for leading the committee. It's very complex issues.
Yes.
Extremely complex. And all the committee members for participating in helping us form what I consider, based on the recommendations that you all provided, a long-term strategic direction for the county and for JPS. Just achieving one of your recommendations alone is difficult, leaving alone all of those recommendations. However, don't do this yet, because we may decide that we will need your help to carry out and maybe provide oversight to the implementation of the strategic plan. So I don't know what my colleagues and the board of managers may look at in the long term, but as you know, this is a 20, 30-year plan that we are looking at here. Okay, and this can't be accomplished overnight. And like I said, these
Bud Kennedy in
recommendations
there?
are very accurate, but
Is that
yet
Bud
they are
Kennedy in
very
there?
high level. So to keep the county on track, based on these recommendations, we may need some sort of a mechanism to make sure that we are on track. So I wouldn't be thinking about dissolving the committee yet. Okay, so please help us get this ball rolling, because you know when an airplane take off, it uses most of its energy and fuel in taking off. Okay, and the plane is not off the ground yet. Okay, we may crank the engine a little bit, but we still have a long way to go. So I appreciate your help, and please prepare yourself mentally to help us take to flight this strategic plan. Thank you.
Good words of wisdom there, Andy.
May I? Very briefly stated, we all knew before we came in here that for a long time, the JPS hospital has been open 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, for a long time. And I think maybe the point I want to make is on behalf of the hospital folks and the people who have worked there and all these people who have contributed, our intention is to do that again. Whether this passes or not, this hospital has been and will be there for Tarrant County.
Yeah.
That's it.
Pastor, you looking?
I'm good.
Okay.
Anyone
so
else?
If Mark will let us finish this off, we can go.
Come on, Mark.
We've had, you know what, can I take one? We've had a couple of folks from the public that have always been here. I know
Yes, yeah.
you got any parting words of wisdom for us?
Your charter was to put together a package that will propel JPS into the future, and you were chartered not to address the costs involved in it, and I understand that. But that's an important part of the whole thing. You know, this past year, real estate taxes in Arlington went up 10%. You know, the city of Arlington didn't give anything back. They went up 10%. And that's just absolutely ridiculous. And so this program, I'm all for parts of it, but you have to look at it from a standpoint of taking people's money and spending it the way you want to, rather than the way they want to.
And we're trying to spend it what's in the best interest of the residents of Tarrant County. And that's our desire, Commissioner and Roy.
Well, if I may address that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, from my personal observation, we wanted this body to operate objectively based on the healthcare needs of the county, now and in the future. We can't tell the future, so we have to use some sort of methodology to project the needs. People may have different opinion about the methodology that was used, but nevertheless, we had to make a projection to help us see the future. We did not ask this body to consider cost, because we didn't want for the perception that this body is nothing but a political cover for the court. We did not ask you to prioritize the needs, because again, we feel like we want you to be freely evaluating the needs for what they are and the potential recommendations for what they are. And it is our responsibilities as the public servants of the county to look at the recommendations and allocate resources to it. It may be 5 years, it may be 10 years, maybe never. Who knows? Whatever ultimately end up in the implementation plan, right, wrong, or indifferent, we are responsible.
Right.
The court members and the board of managers
Right.
are responsible. We don't want to send the wrong message to the public that this body is nothing but a political cover.
Right.
So the recommendations in this report, I feel very strongly that this was done in a highly objective way, and I appreciate that.
And we appreciate your input, Commissioner, because you attended the meetings and you participated, and that meant a whole lot to our deliberations, to have your.
Do we get perfect attendance award?
Yes, yes. you
We
do.
might get a gold star.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
all right. Thank you all.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate those good comments, man.
Business owner in Tarrant County.